Hey guys, today I wanted to talk about the rowing machine, specifically the Concept 2, and to clear up a few myths about the damper setting, how to use it, what the optimal damper setting is, and also talk a little bit about the relationship between calories and distance. Okay, so the first thing is, I've been confused about the damper setting for years, what it actually does. Is it resistance? Is it gears? How does that actually work? When you've got damper setting on 1 and damper setting on 10, what is the difference? What's actually happening? So a couple of key things are going on. Damper setting 1 versus damper setting 10. Damper setting 10 is going to allow more air into the box, into the flywheel, and it's going to feel, each stroke is going to feel a little bit more difficult to overcome the inertia to begin with than it would do on setting number 1. But are you going to travel further and faster on setting number 10 versus setting number 1? And in short, the answer to that is no. So I carried out an experiment myself where I set the rowing machine up for 250 meters and I rowed at the same power output, so the same number of watts at setting number 1 versus setting number 10. And I finished the 250 meters at almost an identical time. The only thing that was different was the strokes per minute and how it felt to row on setting 1 versus setting number 10. So obviously on setting number 1, I'm doing far more strokes per minute than I am on setting number 10, where the strokes per minute were a lot lower. But maintaining average power, so the average power was 230 watts on both settings, ensured that I finished at the same time. So that dispels the myth that the damper setting is like a set of gears on a bike, whereby you would go further and faster in gear 10 than you would do in gear 1. So that's putting to bed that myth once and for all. Okay, it doesn't mean that having the rower or the damper setting at number 10 will not feel different, because you've got more air that you're pushing around. The resistance or how it feels per stroke is going to feel a lot different than it does on setting 1 than it does to setting 10. And it just changes the mechanics of how you can apply power. And where that comes into, I'll try and give an example. It's not like the bike gear, but it changes the way you can apply force. So if you're going to use an example of punching something, so if you drew back and punched as hard as you could and punched a balloon versus punching a punch bag, you've got, when you punch the balloon, there's no feedback, you don't get any sort of resistance to your punch, and you punch straight through and it feels terrible. But when you punch a punch bag, there is an immediate feedback and resistance to the punch, and the force has been applied. And it's similar to the settings on the damper. It's very difficult to apply lots of power on damper setting 1, because you feel like you just spin through the first stroke and there's no sort of feedback or resistance to help you apply that power, whereas there is on setting number 10, which may favor taller, larger, heavier, more powerful individuals versus rowing at a lower setting. And that leads me on to my next point, which is there an ideal setting? And the ideal setting would be determined by what's called a drag factor. So the PM5 or the monitor, you can go into that menu and find a drag factor, which I think it has some variations or variables. It'll vary on altitude, humidity, the amount of lint or dust that's inside the drum. But all things being equal, or if you clean out your drum and you're at a specific altitude and humidity, all things being equal, it is the best way to have uniformity across different devices, and you can set your damper setting accordingly. Is there an ideal damper setting? Yes, there is. This is the damper setting that's been set by Concept 2 as being an ideal mixture of the amount of force that you need to apply per stroke, that gives you the most sort of the balance between a cardio effect and the endurance effect on your muscles. And I think for men it's between 120 and 140, and I think it's a little bit less. I can't remember the exact figures for ladies, but it's available on the Concept 2 website. And you can just go into the menu on the monitor and you can establish what the drag factor is. You hit the buttons on the monitor, and I think I've done a previous video. If I have, I will link it up here in this corner, and you can check out how to do it. But you row a few strokes and it provides a figure, and if the figure is too low, you just increase the damper setting until you hit the sweet spot of between 120 and 140, and whatever that damper setting is on, that's usually going to be the optimal setting for you as an athlete using that piece of equipment. And the next part I wanted to talk about is the relationship between calories and distance and pace, because oftentimes in a CrossFit setting or any sort of setting where you've got lots of different athletes, we may not have enough equipment, and sometimes some of the athletes are dispersed on rowing machines or bike machines or even ski ergs. And sometimes it's not that easy to work out the distances or the split times or what needs to happen in a workout. So workouts get given over time domains or distance domains or calories. Now, the relationship between distance and calories is not direct. And so you can't really say that if somebody's going to go 500 meters on the rower, that would equate to, I don't know, 25 or 30 calories. I can't remember what the exact figure is, but it isn't a direct relationship in any case, because calories, there is a specific formula which I'm going to put up on the screen, and that will basically establish that there's a direct relationship between calories and power output. And so calories reward greater power output. So if you row 20 calories at 200 watts versus 20 calories at 100 watts, you're going to have a different distance completed at the completion of the workout. So although you've carried out your 20 calories, the 20 calories at the higher power output, you may have covered that 20 calories in a shorter distance than you would do at the lower power output. So the relationship between calories and distance is not the same, and calories reward power rather than a steady pace and a specific distance covered. So you may have those sort of calorie conversion charts in your gym that show, I don't know, 20 calories equals 400 meters on the rower or whatever it is. That could be completely off. But in any case, it's going to be very different depending on the amount of power that's applied to achieve those calories. Okay, a few points to finish up with. So the damper setting doesn't change the resistance, it changes the feel of every stroke and how you can actually apply the power within your body. So in basic terms, you are the resistance on the rower, and it is determined by how hard you pull. Calories are not directly related to distance, but they're related to the power generated per stroke on, a rower or bike or whatever you're using. And the easiest way to figure out what the best damper setting is to use is the drag factor, and that can ensure that you've got consistency throughout all of your rowers in a CrossFit box or in your own home. Then the consistency element can be ensured by having the same drag factor across all the machines that you use. And so, guys, I'd like to finish off. If you're surprised by any of these facts and figures, then drop a comment, or if you've had different experiences of this, or you think I am talking entire rubbish, then please drop a comment, let me know. I'll be interested to hear what you have to say. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.